Good morning, everybody. Let us begin, because we have a very short time, actually. So let's dive into one of the last read books in the Bible and in the Old Testament. I mean, seriously, who have read the book of Leviticus, like fully? Okay, 1, 2, 3, cool. Okay, so you are a great exception to Christian community. Because usually, like, who read the Bible? Everybody raises hand. Okay, cool. So now, book by book, who raised Genesis? Everybody like, yes. Who read Exodus? About half. Who read Leviticus? 1. Okay. Why? Because it's about sacrifices, and we don't understand. It's actually very simple to understand. I'm not gonna explain everything, but hopefully, maybe a few years from now, down the road, we can have a small, let's put it this way, sacrificial Levitical camp. So we'll just have a weekend, and I'll explain everything, because it's relatively, it's not so hard. Let's put it this way. Okay. So we are in the third book. Okay, so we have Genesis, we have Exodus, and we have Leviticus. It is important to understand that already in Leviticus, not so obvious in Exodus, we will begin to build up on previous books, on Genesis, and a little bit less on Exodus. And actually, the book of Leviticus, if you will look through your notes, gives a background for some of the New Testament books, passages and books. Okay? So, small stuff in the very beginning. The book begins, okay? And it's called, and the Lord called Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, okay? Very often people believe that the tent of meeting is a tabernacle because it was a tent, okay? Mistake. Big, grave mistake. Why? The thing is, by the end of chapters 1 through 7, and then 8 and 9, we have consecration of priests. So Moses receives this message before the whole tabernacle construction plan, construction place was finished. Okay? So we need to understand that as Israelites were building up tabernacle, Moses receives set of laws and commandments how it should be operated. Okay? So the tent of meeting that we have here is actually the tent that Moses set up outside of the camp when they had an incident with golden calf. Okay? If you don't remember what's the golden calf, go back 1 week. In Exodus, we've talked about that. That's chapters from 32 to 34. Okay? So that's an important place. So they are building up tabernacle, and again, one more time, parallel with that, Moses receives a set of revelation that what sacrifices are, what kind of things should be performed with them, and what kind of priests there are. So at least from chapter 1 to chapter 10 to chapter 9 was written before the tabernacle was set up. Then the rest, maybe after, but the beginning is there. Now, the whole kind of overall structure has 7 blocks, and we've talked about the benefits of reading biblical passages through structural lenses. Again, if you will find any other structures that will help you to remember the flow of the book, fine with me. Okay? Those structures are not necessarily divine. Okay? They are good and helpful. At least they are good and helpful for me. It helps me to remember where the parts are. And you can see that some of those parts are matching parts. For example, part 1. 1 through 7, we have a set of speeches of the Lord about sacrifices. So that's rights. Sorry, I misspelled it again. It's not rights in the sense of right, but it should be R-I-T-E-E-S, okay? So it's rites in sense of orders. So holy orders of God. And matching that, 25, verse 23 begins, 25-23 through chapter 27 are holy rites. Okay, again, but this one is right. It's of man. So it's redemption, obedience, and vows. Okay? Now, second block, B, 8 through 10. Priests are holy people of God. And there is a story, there is a narrative. There is not only commandment of the Lord, but there is a narrative in chapter 10, how two of the sons of Aaron, Nadab, my goodness, let me see what's the name? Nadab and Abihu, yes. They came up with a strange fire. Okay? And matching this, on the other side, B prime is chapters 23 to 25, 22. There is calendar, there are holy days of God, so there are holy people, and there are holy days. Okay? So, or holy times, we can say, of God. And also there is a story of also a guy who has some Egyptian descent, even though he is in Israelite camp. And there is a problem that what he does was not appropriate, and there was a punishment for his blasphemy. Okay? So we have death of two sons of Aaron when they approached the altar inappropriately, let's put it this way. And we have a matching story of a guy who, it's not really clear what really happened, but whatever happened with his life, he's done something inappropriate. Now, block C and C prime. In chapters 11 through 15, we are talking about clean and unclean. I would say this is one of the most difficult concepts for modern Christians, for today's Christians. And then matching that, we have holy and unholy, or I call it profane. Okay? So you have some things some rules from chapter 11 to 15 that give us an understanding, the concept of uncleanness. Again, we do not operate with that. This is something that really not in our world. We do not really see it that way. But therefore, those chapters are so important, because later on in the Bible, later in the Old Testament, and Jesus and his disciples, they do operate in the world which is kind of separated into clean and unclean. And what is that, and how it can be dealt with? We need to go back to Leviticus. So 17 through 22, we have, some scholars call it the Code of Holiness. So that's about holy and unholy. And the memory verse that I gave you is from this block. And that's what Jesus repeats from time to time. Or let's put it this way, he builds on that. Okay? So let's look at the memory verse at the very end of your second page. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to all the congregation of people of Israel, and say to them, you, and it's plural. So it's not like you, it's you together. Okay? So you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Okay? So how cool is that? We have to be holy. We have to be holy. I'm just trying to read Hebrew and English in my brain simultaneously, because the word for holiness is kadosh. So it begins with K, so that's why I ended up with holy. So we are holy, for he is holy. Okay? And you can take it definitely two different ways. One way is we have to make ourselves holy. Okay? How do you make yourself holy? You pray a lot, you donate to church a lot, you do pilgrimages, you do good works, and that makes you, or you take a vow special, you become a priest or a monk or a nun, or something, you do something to become holy. That's one understanding. Or there is an understanding that we are granted this holiness because of Jesus. Okay, so he sees us holy because Jesus is holy. Okay, so let's read it again. You, plural, shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. So what is, again, one more time, what is basis, what is the primary phrase and what's the secondary phrase? How you will understand it, it will determine basically the rest of the reading of the Bible for you. Okay? There are people, good, godly, very devoted Christians, who believe that we have to do many, many things to present ourselves holy. I don't know, go to mission trips. Or, again, donate lots of money to the church. Or, on regular basis, buy Christian books and support the Christian publishing companies. It's all great. This is all awesome. I'm not saying that do not do those things. But we need to understand that you are holy for or because I am holy. As long as we belong to Him, as long as we are attached to Him, as long as we follow Him, we have status of holiness. Does not mean that we can do it loosely and not paying attention to our behavior, because our behavior will be a witness on the holiness of our God. So that's those things we need to put together. So in the middle of the book of Leviticus, we have a very interesting thing. Usually it is translated, chapter 16, usually it is translated as a Day of Atonement. Okay? And that's kind of true, because we have first a calf or a bull, which is sacrificed for priests. And then we have another sacrificial animal, which is the goat. But it's not, the word which is used there is not an atonement. The word which is used there is covering. So when high priest shows up in the Holy of Holies, when he spills the blood over the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark is covered with the blood. And therefore, when Lord observes the people, he looks through the blood and he sees them covered by the sacrificial blood. Okay? So, in reality, it is a day of covering. Yom Kippur comes from, so the word Kippur is a covering. If any of you have Jewish friends, they have those small hats that they wear. Sometimes they call them yarmulkes, but some of them who are more religiously oriented call them kippas. And it's the same, kippah, it's the same root, the covering of the head. Okay? We'll talk a little bit more on 16th in a second. But before that, I would like to show you one important thing. Let me see, reflection in the other parts of the Bible. So Leviticus 1 to 16 actually follows the narrative of Genesis 1 through 7. And that's what I said. Already in Leviticus, we begin to build up on the previous parts of the Bible. So let me show you. Since I restricted myself to 2 pages only, I decided not to include it. Now, we can talk about this. So, this is Leviticus, and this is first 4 chapters of Genesis. We have creation, and we have creation of the sacrificial system in chapters 1 through 7. Then, after creation in chapter 1, end of chapter 1, but this is basically, let's put it roughly this way. In chapter 2, we have creation of man. And in Leviticus, we have creation of the holy people. Okay, we have creation of priests. In chapters 8 and 9, we are given an explanation of who are the priests, how they should be dedicated, how they should be anointed, not annoying, but anointed. That's kind of important. and how they need to operate within the society and with other people of God. But after creation of man, what happens? Fall. Okay? Fall. What happens after creation of priests? Surprisingly, 2 of them bring a foreign fire. Okay? So that's kind of building up. So you have creation as a whole, creation of the whole system, because you cannot make sacrifices with no priests. But first we are talking about sacrifices, then we are talking about priests. Then some of the priests fall, and as God said, on the day that you eat from the fruit of this tree, you will die. Actually, 2 of those guys really die. Okay? But as judgment comes, if you want to open Genesis 3, how does judgment go? What's the order? God, first of all, speaks to who? Adam or Eve or whom? Adam, no. He first speaks to snake, to serpent. Okay? Then he speaks to his wife, to Adam's wife, and only then he speaks to man. Interestingly enough, the chapter 11 is dedicated to clean, unclean animals. Then we have rules for childbirth for wife, and that's mainly what that chapter 3 of Genesis is concerned. Okay? Chapter 3 of Genesis mostly concerned is your desire, you, the wife, will be toward your husband, and you will experience pain in your childbirth, yes. Okay? So, and that's what we have here. In chapter 12, we have an institution of what kind of status of, again, cleanness and uncleanness wife receives when she goes through childbirth. And it's very interesting that if she bears man, she is unclean totally for 40 days. Okay? If she gives birth to a girl, she's unclean for 80 days. So twice as long. And see, again, most of the Christians would think, what's the terrible thing? Why she's called unclean? This is so bad. This is so awful. Now think about this in a different direction. If a person is unclean, person is not allowed to touch, let's say, common dishes. Because if she touches a dish that everybody else uses, it becomes unclean. So she cannot touch that. She cannot touch food. She cannot really touch anything in the house. I don't know. For me, it sounds like vacation. She's not allowed to work in the house. Seriously. So it's 40 days of rest, or if she gave birth to a future woman, okay, to a girl, it's doubled. It's 80 days of rest. Okay?
Why?
Again, we do not have same ideas about cleanness and uncleanness. It's just different. Just try to read the Bible carefully and see, so it's not actually man overpowering against women and trying to use and abuse their power against them. Actually, what Bible prescribes is more rest for women within their life than actually for man.
Sure.
So, I mean, if some people want to call it patriarchal society, that's fine with me. This kind of patriarchal society that cares for a wife that newly gave birth. I think it's cool. So then we have 3 chapters dedicated to men, not only to men, but men mostly. The issues of uncleanness regarding men's health are here. Some of them are concerned with skin, some other stuff. We're not going to go through that in we don't have time for all of the details. But the question of leprosy is here, and simple comment. Our modern leprosy is not biblical leprosy. Okay? Biblical leprosy is not falling or rotting out and falling out of flesh that we consider leprosy. Okay? What they are talking about is some kind of skin disease where the surface of the skin turns into kind of white, dry out stuff. You can see those people from time to time. Sometimes it's over the head, sometimes it's on hands, and so on and so forth. Now, that's very interesting. After chapter 3 in Genesis, we come to the story of Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel are, as you remember, two brothers. Okay? Genesis chapter 4. One dies. One goes far away. Okay? What do we have in Leviticus chapter 16? In Leviticus chapter 16, we have a ritual of the Day of Covering. That's the center of the book. And center of the book, this chapter 16 begins that those rules have been given. Where are my glasses? The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of two sons of Aaron when they drew near before the Lord and died. Okay? So, from the very beginning, it's like, two sons, two brothers. Okay? The story of two brothers, and now it is developed. Okay. In the Day of Atonement, there are two parts. We have priestly part, and people's part. Let me mess up with English language. People's part. Okay? In priestly part, the main sacrificial animal is calf or bull. Okay? However you want to call it. Okay? Therefore, from now on, calves and bulls will be associated with leaders and primarily with priests. Okay? When Ezekiel, and we will come to Ezekiel, I don't know, in about 25 weeks. So just bear this in mind. You have to remember this for the next 25 weeks. So when Ezekiel sees the four faces of four angels, bull, lion, eagle, and a man. Okay? Bull is a priestly symbol. Lion is kingly symbol. Okay? Eagle is prophetic symbol, and a man is manly. It's a symbol of humanity that outgrew the animal realm. Okay? We'll talk about this. Just give me 25 weeks. Now, calf and the bull are associated with the priest. First, if that would be in our context, I would be dressed up like this in the black shirt, black pants, everything is black. Everything is priestly, but as regular as possible. With the blood of the calf or bull, I would go to if I would be the high priest, or let's say our district president would go to the veil of the Holy of Holies, pull it up. High priest, as far as I know the Bible, never went into the Holy of Holies. What he did is he pulled it up and then, throws toward the Ark of the Covenant the blood of calf. Now, the sins of priestly guys are covered. Okay? Now, God sees them through an important lens, okay? The lens of the blood of the sacrificial animal. Priest goes back, redresses. Now, over that, I can put white alb, white or golden stole to see that this is the feast of the Lord. Now we have an important ritual where we do sacrifices for the people. What kind of animal is sacrificed here? Goat. Okay? Yep. One or two? Two. We use two goats, but one is sacrificed, or let's make it more clear that the parallel is right here. One dies. Okay? Another one is sent far away. Okay? Kind of like poor Shrek has to go to the land far, far away. Remember who accompanied him? The donkey. Not the goat, but Are we there yet? You know all of those jokes. But, so we have two animals. Okay? One dies, another is sent far away. But this is an important picture. This picture is what Isaiah uses when he says, if your sins would be like scarlet, okay, like red, like, that they deserve to have blood, covering, I will make them white. So one animal dies, but I also will remove your sins as far as east goes from the west. Okay? See, we need to understand that all of those guys, all of them, operated within the sacrificial system. It's not simple philosophical observation that east is far away from the west. That's where they build up on. Okay? Because when Cain kills Abel, he goes east. Okay? Far. And for some reason, the movement eastward in the Bible is not a good movement. You don't want to go east on your own will. Adam, when he leaves the garden, he goes east. Cain goes even further east. Then, right before the story of the Tower of Babel, we have a word, and they moved eastward. When we read it, it's like, okay, they are in trouble, for sure. And we have Tower of Babel, okay? So that's an important thing. So whenever we come back to the Lord in the Bible, we come from east to west. We go westward, okay? For example, most likely were the Magi's that came to Jesus used to live. Where did they live? East. They used to live in Babylon or Persia. So to come to the Lord, they had to move westward. Okay? Think about that. We have real stories in the Bible, but the way they intertwine with each other is amazing. I mean, it blows my mind at least. Okay? Now, one more thing. This is how we build on the past. This is how we build on Genesis. Now, please turn your pages pages and look at the second page. Actually, one simple chapter of Leviticus, chapter 23, gives you the outline, not the outline, sorry, an outline, because you can outline it differently. One of the outlines for the book of Revelation. Okay? So those of you who believe that Revelation is the book that hardly can be understood, okay? You can, at least that might give you some hints and helps. Okay? The book of Revelation, I'm not going to write it here because you have it right in front of you. The book of Revelation begins with John being on the island, and he says, it was the Lord's day. Okay? What's the Lord's day?
Sunday.
Saturday. To be precise, within the history of the church, there was a shift, and now we worship on Sunday. But for John, who was a dedicated priestly boy, he grew up in a priestly family. For him, the Lord's day of the regular worship is still Saturday. Okay? And Leviticus, so if you can put two fingers, if you want, in Revelation, but most importantly, open Leviticus 23. The first thing about the day or feasts of the Lord is Saturday, Sabbath. Okay, verse 3. Now we have another feast, which is, so we have weekly gathering, and now we have annual gatherings. Same as we will come again to the Day of Atonement. So Day of Atonement is not a weekly, it's an annual gathering. Now, the first annual gathering is Passover. And what happens in the Passover? You take the lamb, cut him, so he dies. That's a sign of judgment. Somebody takes your judgment upon him, the lamb, upon the lamb. Okay? And that's why in chapters 2 and 3 we have judgment on one hand, but also have salvation for those churches that Jesus is going to visit. Okay? Now, the next feast that we have is Feast of First Fruits. And that's what we have. In Leviticus, it's verses 9 through 14. But in Revelation, it's chapters 4 and 5. That's where Jesus ascends as he is the first who came from death back to life. Okay? And Paul builds up on that. Really, it's an important statement for St. Paul. That he is our first fruit. He is the first one who came from death to life. Now, the fourth feast that we have in Leviticus 23 is Pentecost. Verses 15 to 22. And the day of Pentecost is usually associated with the time when the Torah, the Word of God, was given to the people. What do we find in chapters 6 and 7? We find the scroll. Book covered with the 7 seals. We need to open them up. Okay? The next feast is what we would call New Year, or in Hebrew it would be not Yom Kippur, it's Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year. But the main attribute of this, one of the serious attributes, is you blow the trumpet. Okay? And right after the book with 7 seals, chapters 8 through 14, you have trumpets. Okay? And then you have atonement, which is again, we are coming back to Day of Atonement, or Day of Covering. And then you have chalices of wrath. Okay, in Revelation, chapters 15 to 19, 10. And then you come to the rest. It's a Feast of Tabernacles, or booths. That's what you celebrate for about 7 days, and then one more day is usually extended. So from the verse 33 to the end of chapter 23, we have a Feast of Tabernacles, or booths. That's where we can see how God institutes or reestablishes New Jerusalem, the Jerusalem that comes from above, and we can enjoy the marriage feast of the Lamb. Okay? It is during Feast of Tabernacles, the very important kind of background idea for an understanding of the Feast of Tabernacles, or vice versa actually. The important background to understand the book of Ecclesiastes is to read everything that we know about this Feast of Booths or Tabernacles. Because that's where you eat, drink, marry with or in God or with God. Okay? So it's not, again, by our merits. We enjoy His gifts to us. Gift of food, gift of work, gift of having ability to earn stuff, and also the gift that we have relationship with each other, husband and wife. So that's a great time to enjoy this life. But the book of Revelation points us further into a new world, and that's where we enjoy the marriage feast of the Lamb and His bride, the church. That's what we have in chapters from 19, but most importantly in 21 and 22. Okay? That's all I wanted to say for the record about the book of Leviticus. Any questions or comments?